All right, as promised, here's the preview for tomorrow's games. Now, I'm wearing Boston, and I'm going to discuss why I'm wearing what I'm wearing, why I picked this one. There are very distinct reasons for that. All right, let's get her started. Carolina's in Toronto. This game starts at 11 a.m. my time, 2 p.m. Eastern. So, Carolina 22-12-4. Playing pretty darn well lately. They're 7-2-1 in their last 10. They lost their last game against Florida. On the road, they're 12-6-2. They're 3 points behind the New York Islanders. They're tied with Pittsburgh. They're 1 point ahead of Philadelphia. That is a really close race in the Metro Division. And tomorrow we could see some movement in that division yet again, which shouldn't surprise anybody. On the Toronto side of things, 19-14-4 overall. Leaves fans feeling pretty good. They're 7-3 in their last 10. At home, they're 9-4-4. They are 9 points behind Boston now. When I see people saying, "Oh, they can't catch Boston," my answer is, yeah, okay. Florida and Buffalo, they're 1 point clear of both of those teams. So the Atlantic is really tightening up, and Boston's included in that as well. All right, because let's see, 14-8. So they've gained 6 points on Boston in their last 10 games. The Atlantic can definitely tighten up a little bit. Scoring leaders and overall leaders. Let's get into the Carolina side first. Svechnikov, 15 goals, 21 assists for him. Teravainen has 7 goals, 29 assists for 36 points. So they both have the same points total. Plus-minus leaders, Hamilton, plus 24. Slavin, a plus 20. They're both excellent defensive defensemen this year. I say this year because Slavin's excellent any year. Hamilton this year has just come in playing like a beast. He's been fantastic. Penalty minutes leader is Edmondson with 43. Your power play goals leader is Svechnikov with 5. Shorthanded goals, Aho leads with 3. He also leads in game-winning goals with 4. On the Toronto side of things, Matthews, 23 goals, 18 assists for 41 points. Marner, 8 goals, 22 assists for 30 points. Your plus-minus leaders, Matthews at plus 11. Justin Hall, plus 10. So yes, again, that whole most improved player thing, he's definitely in there. Muzzin, penalty minutes leader with 30. Power play goals, Matthews has 6. Kapanen has 2. And game-winning goals, Tavares and Matthews both have 3. If I was a betting man, and I'm not, I would probably take Toronto in this one as they're at home. But Carolina has been pretty darn good over their last 10 as well. I think it's going to be an excellent game to start the day after a first period that likely is going to be pretty sloppy. Usually with matinee games, that's what you get. Your first period, it's kind of a sloppy mess. Sometimes you get a bunch of goals. Sometimes you get nothing. We'll see what happens between these teams tomorrow. But moving along. Calgary. So coming off of a win in Dallas, they now get to go to the city that Dallas moved from. And so they're going to Minnesota. They're playing against the Minnesota Wild, who I believe play in the other Twin City. So before people start mentioning in the comment section, it's not the same Twin City. It's fine. It's still the Minnesota North Stars moved to Dallas. Now the Minnesota Wild went and replaced them. And I've got a whole book right here that I got through Amazon. 100 thing Wild fans should know and do before they die. So I've got her right there. All right. On the Calgary front, they're 19-14-5 altogether. Over their last 10, they're now 7-2-1. So this is where things get kind of tricky when I'm looking at that power rankings board over there, because there's a lot of teams that have very similar records over their last 10. Road record is now 9-9-2. They evened it up with the win tonight over Dallas. They're 1 point behind Edmonton. They're 1 point behind Dallas. They're 3 points ahead of both Nashville and Vancouver. So if they win tomorrow night, they could pass Dallas and move into a better position in the conference, in that they would play Arizona instead of St. Louis if the playoffs started today. On the Minnesota front, they're 17-15-5 over their last 10. They're 5-4-1. They've got to get rid of that feeling after that loss against Winnipeg yesterday. At home, they're 9-2-3. They are 4 points out of the playoffs behind the Calgary Flames. So if they win tomorrow, they damage Calgary's ability to move forward, and they also make it easier for them to get that much closer that they go into the Christmas break feeling pretty good about themselves. Scoring-wise and overall leaders, Tkachuk, 14 goals, 18 assists for Calgary. Monahan, 11 goals, 19 assists for 30 points. Plus-minus, Ryan has a +5 to lead the team. Bennett and Brody both have +3s. Penalty minutes, Lucic, of course, leads there with 34. Power play goals, Lindholm has 6. Shorthanded goals, both Ryan and Reeder have 1. I think Ryan's was into an empty net as well. Game-winning goals, Lindholm with 4. Now on the Minnesota side of things, Stahl's their leading scorer with 13 goals, 17 assists. Suter, 4 goals and 20 assists. Put him up there instead of Zucker because Zucker's out. Plus minus, although I didn't really censor out injured players for every team because I think it's very telling when you see guys leading in certain categories that aren't playing. Soucy's a plus 15, Brodin's a plus 9. So for people thinking Soucy's having a pretty good year, use plus minus. It's becoming a less reviled statistic all of a sudden. I've started noticing people going, all right, it's not as useless as, in this case it works. Yeah, that's what I've been saying for years. In some cases it works, and in some cases you can kind of throw it out the window. Penalty minutes, Hartman, 44. Where you can throw the plus-minus statistic kind of out the window is when you're playing tons of minutes on a team that's absolutely miserable. Look at Detroit. There are guys with miserable plus-minuses who are actually probably pretty good defensively. You just wouldn't know it right now. So yeah, Hartman, 44 penalty minutes, leads there. Power play goals, Parise with 5. Shorthanded goals, Parise and Soucy both have 1. Game-winning goals, Eric Stahl leads there with 4. So pretty good season for Stahl. We'll see how he does tomorrow against Calgary. Next up, Boston and Washington. So let's discuss this game that starts at 4 o'clock Eastern, and that's when things really kick into gear. And discuss, well, the Bruins. So I'm wearing this. This is a jersey that was gifted to me by Chris, who's been a subscriber to this channel for a very long time. And I don't wear this jersey very often because you can't replace it, and I want to make sure it stays as mint of condition as possible because I know I would not be able to replace it even if I wanted to. But it also harkens back to an era where the Bruins were kind of miserable. And right now it's starting to feel like that. And I'm not sure how to feel about it because people keep saying, well, they're third overall. Right. But their recent record is miserable. So Washington comes in 26-6-5, and this is the ultimate test for the Boston Bruins. They're going to show they can pull their way out of it. Washington is the bane of their existence. Over the last, I'll say decade, bane of their existence has been the Capitals, especially in a playoff series. Last 10, they're 8-2, those Capitals. They come in with a 16-3-1 road record. They are formidable on the road. They're 8 points ahead of the Islanders now, 11 points ahead of Carolina. They really don't have to worry about losing ground on teams in the division right now. They're playing fantastic hockey. On the Boston side, they're 21-7-9. Here's a for instance. If Boston was in the Metro, not only would they not be number one, but they would be pretty close to Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Islanders, and and Carolina, and we'd be talking a lot about how they're in danger of falling out because it's the Atlantic. They really have to bomb out for at least another 10 games, you would think, before we start having that conversation. They're 2-4-4 in their last 10. They've won 2 out of 10. It's been a miserable run. And at least one of those games, I'm pretty sure, would still be that Minnesota comeback where they were kind of lucky to get it. Now at home, they're 12-1-8. The 8 is something you want to focus on. Yes, they've only lost 1 in regulation at home, fine and dandy, but they've lost 9 at home out of 21. So it's kind of fool's gold that we've got going on here. Plus 9 over Toronto right now and 10 points ahead of the Florida Panthers. And ahead of Buffalo and I think 11 points ahead of Montreal. So this is a bit of a slippery slope they're on. They need to pull their way out. I'm wearing this to kind of rally them, and I know there's no powers that my jerseys that I wear actually have, but I feel like this is the time for the Bruins to rally. Okay, now's the time. Now, scoring leaders for Washington, Karlsson, 13 goals, 34 assists for 47 points. Ovechkin, 22 goals, 13 assists, 35 points. Your plus-minus leaders in Washington, Karlsson with a plus 21. Gudas has a plus 16, which really surprised me. Because I've seen games where Gudas has made kind of bad plays, and yet his plus-minus is pretty good. And that's where you do have to take it with a grain of salt. Penalty minutes leader is Hathaway with 51. I would think Tom Wilson buys dinner for him pretty much every pregame and postgame because it takes a lot of pressure off Wilson. He doesn't have to go out there and be the team's jerk. He's got Hathaway doing it, and he can kind of focus on being a power forward and getting points and goals and staying on the ice. He doesn't have to do the agitating. Hathaway's doing it. So's Gudas. Power play goals, Ovechkin leads with 8. Dowd has the lead in shorthanded goals with 2. Game-winning goals, Carlson does have 6 for the Capitals. Now, on the Boston side, Pastrnak, 28 goals, 23 assists for 51 points. Marchand also has 51 points. He has 18 goals, 33 assists to get there. Plus-minus leaders, Chara, plus 18. He's been excellent this year. Krejci and Marchand with plus 16s each. Penalty minutes leader is Marchand with a 45 penalty minute total. Pastrnak leads him in power play goals with 13. Wagner has the only shorthanded goal scored by the team this year. And game-winning goals, that's Pasta as well with 6. So we'll see how this goes tomorrow night. If they're going to rally, get it going now. Next up, Florida in against Tampa. So the Battle of Florida is back. And they were likely sick of each other after playing each other in the preseason and then playing each other home and home to start the season. They've had a bit of a break now. Let's see how things go between them this time. And 18-12-5 is a record for Florida. Not unlike the record that Tampa Bay's had. So thus far, there's not a lot separating these teams. Over their last 10, Florida's 6-4. On the road, they're 7-5-3. They're 1 point behind Toronto. They're tied with Buffalo, but they've got a tiebreaker on Buffalo. That's why they're in the playoff spot. Buffalo is not. And they're 1 point ahead of Montreal. This is a very tightly bunched division. On the Tampa Bay side, also in that division, of course, 17-13-4. Over their last 10, they're 5-4-1. At home, they're 9-7-2. And they are 3 points behind Florida for that number 3 spot in the division. So the interesting thing with Tampa is this. They're not really out of it. You feel like they are, but they really aren't. And a 3 or 4 game winning streak, they're likely in a playoff spot, and we can start talking about, they're good, they're getting it. But the thing is, they haven't done that yet. They really haven't. They've already lost 17 games this year. They lost 20 all last season. They've already lost 17. This is not last year's Tampa Bay Lightning. It's not even close. It's not the playoff Tampa Bay Lightning either. They lost all 4 games, which maybe they're still shell-shocked from that. Maybe that's part of it. On the Florida side of things, your leaders, Huberdeau, 13 goals, 34 assists for 47 points. He's scoring way too much. Just tons of points. Barkov, 11 goals, 29 assists for 40 points. Plus-minus leaders, Ekblad, plus 15. He's having an excellent season. Nobody's talking about it. Huberdeau, plus 11. Penalty minutes leader, still Hunt, even though he hasn't played for them in a while. 24 penalty minutes. This is not a team that takes a bunch of penalties. Power play goals, Barkov has 6. Shorthanded goals, there's 3 players who have 1. Trocheck, Achari, and Vetrano. Game-winning goals, Achari with 4. That's crazy that Achari's the leader in game-winning goals. I don't expect that to last all year, but it's kind of a proud moment right now. On the Tampa Bay side of things, Kucherov, 12 goals, 25 assists for 37 points. Stamkos, 13 goals, 17 assists for 30 points. Your plus-minus leaders, Shattenkirk with a plus 12, Palat with a plus 9. Remember last year when everybody had like a plus 40 on this team, or so it seemed? Not this year. Penalty minutes, Maroon leads with 36 so far. Power play goals, Stamkos has 7. Shorthanded goals, there's 2 players with 1. And that's Palat and Paquette. Game-winning goals, Stamkos and Gord both have 3. So we're still waiting on that big breakthrough from Stamkos. We're still waiting on Kucherov to really get it in gear. And we're starting to wonder how long we're going to have to wait. That being said, I need to change boards. All right, now, next up is Columbus in against the Islanders. So Columbus has had a nice run going. They have. Now they get to see how that run's going to work against a really good team that's been kind of in a bit of a funk lately in the New York Islanders. So Columbus 16-14-6. Their record has got better, and they seem to be digging their way out. Again, being in the Metro is not a friend of theirs. The Metro's even worse in terms of trying to climb into a playoff spot than any of us could have anticipated before the season started. In their last 10, they're 5-3-2. They've got points in 7 straight, I believe. On the road, they're 5-6-5. They're still 7 points behind Philly. So there's no room for slowing down. They're going to have to go on like a 15 or 16 game, probably point streak. I'm not going to say winning streak, but probably 15 or 16 game point streak to really get themselves back into it because it is just so hard in this division. Now, the Islanders are 23-8-3. In their last 10, they're 6-3-1. At home, they're 13-3-2. So they're pretty darn good at home. They are 8 points behind Washington, 3 points ahead of Carolina. So they do have to look over their shoulder and make sure they maintain that distance from Carolina in the division. And if the Islanders play Carolina in the playoffs, I'd be a happy camper. That would be a great playoff series yet again. I don't think it'd be a sweep this time either. Now, leaders for Columbus, Nyquist, 9 goals, 17 assists. It's interesting. I've started hearing Nyquist having a great season. He's having a good season. Not great. Panarin's having a great season with the Rangers. Nyquist is playing well. Let's not get ahead of ourselves and start talking about how great he is. He's having a good season. Dubois, 12 goals, 13 assists. I'm not saying that to anybody on the channel either. I'm talking about media that reports this stuff. So when you hear me talk about that, it's usually something I've heard on TV. It's something I've heard in media that I'm like, okay, just pump the brakes a little bit. He's playing well. Plus minus leaders, Robinson with a +6. So he's been pretty good when he's in the lineup. Gavrikov with a +4. So 2 young players there with the pluses. Penalty minutes, Foligno leads with 30. Power play goals, Werenski and Atkinson both have 3. Shorthanded goals, Nash, Werenski, and Nyquist all have 1. Game-winning goals, Bjorkstrand and Dubois both have 3. So Columbus spreads it around. On the Islanders side of things, Barzal has 15 goals, 15 assists, and I've been hearing about Barzal too. He had a down year last year. Now, offensively, yes, but I think it was getting used to Trotz's style and playing that defensive side of things. And now this year, I think he's being given more free rein by Barry Trotz, and the defense is still there. Nelson, 13 goals, 15 assists. He's quietly having a very good year as well. Plus minus leaders, there's Barzal with a +10 and Beauvillier with a +9. There's a lot of unsung heroes in the New York Islanders lineup. Penalty minutes, Johnston leads with 47. Power play goals, Barzal and Nelson both have 3. Shorthanded goals, Cizikas leads with 2. Game-winning goals, Nelson has 4. So it is scoring by committee for the Islanders, but Barzal is showing signs right now that he's going to break through. He's on pace for over 30 goals. He's on pace for about 70 points. This could be a really big year for him. I think those points are going to come. I think he could end up at 82, 85 points this year. And with the defense that he's added to his game, that's fantastic. That being said, there's a part of me kind of hoping Columbus goes in and wins this tomorrow, because I do enjoy what the parity does and that it keeps everybody in it. Now, it does mean that when I do those power ranking videos on Saturday, that there was guaranteed to be half the league that's really upset because they've had a pretty good week, and it doesn't necessarily show in there. But here's to hoping Columbus goes in and maybe tightens that division up just a little bit more. Next up, Rangers are in against the Flyers. So the Rangers got a pretty good boost to their confidence today. You just go ahead and fix that record. They're not. That's not. No. I'm sorry. Rangers fans. It's not that bright and sunshiny. They're not 17-4-4. They're 17-14-4. Okay. So bright sunshiny record out of the way. I'm sorry. I apologize to Rangers fans everywhere. I just gave you 10 more losses like that. It's the hockey powers. Last 10 games, the Rangers are 4-5-1. On the road, they're 8-6-2, and they're 7 points behind the Philadelphia Flyers. 7. So they are tied with the Columbus Blue Jackets as these teams both try to dig their way back into it. Philadelphia, 20-11-5 overall. Over their last 10, they're 6-4. At home, they're 12-2-4. They are 1 point behind Carolina and Pittsburgh. They are 4 points ahead of Buffalo. So Buffalo technically isn't that far off of a wild card spot. And maybe we'll end up in a situation where maybe the Atlantic can snag a wild card spot, and then that kind of eats into the narrative that the Metro is that much stronger than the Atlantic, though it is. From top to bottom, it definitely is. There's no Ottawa or Detroit in the Metro division. No offense to Ottawa or Detroit, but Columbus has a better record, and the whole Metro really has a better record. All right, so leaders. On the Rangers side of things, Panarin, 20 goals, 25 assists, 45 points. It can't keep up like this, can it? Strome, 7 goals, 23 assists, 30 points. So how does this happen with Panarin? Like, how is he scoring so much more? And it's weird because you'll see Rangers fans complaining about the way that David Quinn runs things and the way that the Rangers are doing things with the young kids. But there's a lot of young kids on this roster that are doing pretty well. And Panarin is having the best season of his entire career. So the Rangers are doing something right. Plus minus leaders, Panarin +15 and Stroma +8. Penalty minutes, Brendan Lemieux with 85. He's going to end up with about 200 penalty minutes this year at a time when nobody's getting 200 penalty minutes anymore, so he should lead the league in that category. Power play goals, Panarin with 6. Shorthanded goals, Zibanejad with 2. Game-winning goals, Panarin with 3. On the Philadelphia side of things, Konechny, 11 goals, 21 assists to lead the team. Couturier, 9 goals, 19 assists. Plus minus, Myers, plus 17. So that's a pretty strong indicator he's having an amazing run with them. Provorov a plus 8. Penalty minutes leader is Farabee with 35. Power play goals, Provorov with 5. Shorthanded goals, Hayes and Frost both have 1. Game-winning goals leader is Giroux with 4. So the overall picture right now is the Flyers should win this. They're at home. They have a great home record. But the New York Rangers, they're dangerous. They're a fast team. And I think that while they're 7 points out and all, I think they're better than what that standing would tell you. I think they're a pretty good team. And I would assume they go with Georgiev tomorrow, probably Carter Hart tomorrow. Could be a really strong matchup between two pretty good young goaltenders. So this is a dark horse for game of the night. All right, moving along. Buffalo in against Ottawa. Beware the Ottawa Senators. I'm not putting up an Akbar magnet. It's still mad at me about the Toronto game. It is still quite upset with me about that Toronto game. It's not happy. So Buffalo's in against Ottawa. This one starts at 4:30 Pacific, 7:30 Eastern. So we've got 4 games starting at 4 o'clock. That's not too bad. And then one at 4:30 my time, and then one at 5. So it's pretty spread out, which is nice. It's nice. Now, this game features the 17-13-7 Buffalo Sabres, who over their last 10 are 5-3-2. So there's a feeling they're getting it together. On the road, though, they're 6-10-4. So again, while their road record, it's a work in progress and everything, they've still won 6 out of 20. They've got to even that up to have that chance to really move ahead in the division. They're tied with Florida for that third spot. They're 1 point ahead of Montreal. They're 3 points ahead of Tampa. So things are not dire, but it's crazy. So we can just say it's crazy in the Atlantic right now. On the Ottawa side of things, they're 15-18-4 over their last 10. They're 4-3-3. At home, they're 10-5-1. They're very good at home. Fans need to come out and watch them. They're pretty darn good at home. They're 7 points behind Florida. So as dire as things look, and as much as it looks like, it's rebuild city, well, they get Scott Sabourin back tomorrow. Sabourin was a pretty useful forward for them. Far more useful than I think any of us had expected before the season started. And with him back and the team relatively healthy, who knows? They could pull off an upset over Buffalo tomorrow. But again, I can't put an Akbar magnet up there. It's not talking to me. On the scoring side of things, Eichel, 24 goals, 27 assists, 51 points. He's an absolute beast. At least once a game, I'm like, he's in beast mode. Olofsson, 16 goals, 18 assists for him. Plus minus leaders, Eichel with a plus 16, VC with a plus 9. On the penalty minute side of things, Ristolainen with 30. Power play goals, Olofsson has 9. Shorthanded goals, VC has the only shorthanded goal for the team this year. Game-winning goals leader is Eichel with 4. On the Ottawa side, Duclair, 21 goals and 9 assists. He's already passed his career record for goals in a season. Pajot, 16 goals, 10 assists for 26 points. Plus minus leaders, Pajot with a plus 19. DeMello with a plus 7. Pajot's having a fantastic year this year. Penalty minutes, Borowiecki leads with 40. Power play goals, Duclair has 5 to lead the team in that category. Shorthanded goals, Pajot with 3. He also leads the team in game-winning goals with 3. So Pajot is really the heart and soul of this team. We'll see what they do with him. I'm still really curious as to what Ottawa's going to do. I think they're still in the midst of trying to figure out this rebuild. And the fact that San Jose is falling so far out of the playoffs position, they fell well below 500 with that loss tonight against Vegas. It's tempting to kind of tear things down in Ottawa and get 2 shots at the lottery. And your odds of winning more than once, they're there. And so it's got to be tempting for Pierre Dorion to say, man, if we could use Pajot or Duclair to get another first-round draft pick, even if it's for a team in the playoffs, and we get 3 first-round draft picks, including that San Jose one, we can really speed up this rebuild right now. Because this is a nice, deep entry draft in 2020. And there are plenty of teams that would knock for Pajot or Duclair right now. So yeah, be interesting to see what they do from here. Just saying. Next up, Arizona's in against Nashville. So Arizona coming out of that win on Detroit, where Detroit looked kind of overwhelmed by the end of that game. We'll see what Arizona can do against the Nashville Predators. And it's worthy of note, Hall, Now has 1 goal and 2 assists for 3 points in 3 games as a member of the Arizona Coyotes. It's something we're going to be tracking for a while. Now 21-13-4 is the overall record for the Arizona Coyotes. Pretty strong. Over their last 10, they're 6-4, and as long as they remain above 500 over any 10-game span, they're going to the playoffs at the very least. Road record is 13-4-3. They're tied with Vegas now for first in the division as Vegas continues their run. They're 2 points ahead of Edmonton and 3 points ahead of Calgary. So this is still a very tight race, which could tighten up even further tomorrow night. As an example, if Arizona lost and both Calgary and Edmonton won, there's then 1 point separating 4 teams. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying there'd be 1 point separating 4 teams. Crazy. On the Nashville side of things, I should say, 17-12-6 is their overall record. They're 5-3-2 in their last 10. At home, they're 9-6-4. They're 3 points behind Calgary. So Nashville trying to get themselves back into the picture. And so this is a pretty darn good matchup. This should be very, very interesting. Nashville, really, really successful road trip. Let's see if they can continue it with tomorrow night's game. Schmaltz, 6 goals, 23 assists with 29 points, leads the Arizona Coyotes. Keller, 10 goals, 18 assists, 28 points, second place. I don't have Hall up there because I'm tracking how many points he has with Arizona. Plus minus, Dvorak, plus 10. Schmaltz and Goligoski both have a plus 6. Penalty minutes, Chychrun, 28 penalty minutes. Kessel has 6 power play goals. Grabner has the only shorthanded goal they've scored this year, and Garland has 3 game-winning goals for the Arizona Coyotes. On the Nashville side of things, Yossi's having a great year. 13 goals, 20 assists for 33 points. Ellis, 6 goals, 22 assists, 28 points. So their top 2 scorers are both defensemen. Plus minus, Josi and Bonino both have a plus 15, so they're tied for the lead there. Penalty minutes leaders Austin Watson with 42. Power play goals, Josi leads there with 4. Shorthanded goals, Yarncroke has 2. And game-winning goals, Bonino has 3. So your overall numbers tell you Yossi's having a pretty darn fine season, as I would have expected. That being said, I need to change boards. All right, next up, Montreal's in against the Winnipeg Jets. This one starts at 5 o'clock my time, 8 o'clock Eastern as well. And then we've got one that starts at 5:30. And then we move along to 3 games that start at 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Pacific. So the Montreal Canadiens in against the Winnipeg Jets. Montreal's currently 17-13-6. Over their last 10, they're 6-4. It has got a lot better. The dire straits they were in, they seem to have pulled out of them. And it's no coincidence that Carey Price has been better in December than he was in November, and that they've turned it around in that period of time. They're 9-5-3 on the road. They're 1 point behind both Buffalo and Florida. So Montreal, while they're not in a playoff spot, they're close. And they could come out of tomorrow night with one. Now, Winnipeg, they're 21-13-2. They're 5-4-1 in their last 10. At home, they're 10-7-1. They're 3 points behind Colorado, and they're tied with Dallas. Now, Dallas lost tonight, so they can put some distance between themselves and the Stars with a win tomorrow night at home against Montreal. This is the one that I think probably ends up being the game of the night. This could be an exciting game between two teams that can play pretty fast and fun up-tempo game. Now, scoring leaders-wise, Tatar leads with 13 goals, 17 assists. So there's less scoring from Montreal, but they're still a fun up-tempo team to watch. Weber, 11 goals, 18 assists, quietly having a very good season. Plus-minus leaders, Weber with a plus 12, and Sherratt has a plus 10. I like Ben Sherratt. He's having a very good year. Penalty minutes leader is Tatar with 28. He does take his share of penalties, but he's also their power play goal leader with 5. Shorthanded goals, Petrie and Armia both have 1. Game-winning goals, there are 4 players on the Montreal Canadiens that have 2 each. On the Winnipeg side of things, Scheifele leads them in scoring with 17 goals, 20 assists for 37 points. Laine, 13 goals, 21 assists for 34 points. Plus-minus leaders, Roslovic is a plus 10. Ehlers and Pionk are both plus 8. And all 3 of those guys are having very solid seasons for the Winnipeg Jets and are leading reasons why they're so strong as they are. Penalty minutes leader is Scheifele with 28. Your power play goal leader is also Scheifele with 6. Shorthanded goals, Wheeler and Lowry both have 1. And game-winning goals, Scheifele has 5. So Mark Scheifele is on this board a lot. And for Winnipeg, he is their, I think, their best player. You could have argued Wheeler coming into this year. You could still argue Laine, and I really couldn't argue against Laine being the best and most talented, but the most consistent and their best overall player, I still think is Scheifele. So We'll see how they do tomorrow night against a Montreal team, which is coming off of a pretty big win of their own. So, this should be a fun little matchup between two teams, trying to see who the better one really is, and Montreal trying to prove we belong in the playoffs. So, next up, New Jersey in against the Chicago Blackhawks. And again, 5:30 Pacific, 8:30 Eastern. Chicago is getting it back together, and they're becoming more and more relevant with each passing win. Now, New Jersey's going to try to stop that. I don't think they can, but they're going to try. They're 11-19-5 in their last 10. They're 2-7-1 on the road. They're 6-11. And if you want to understand that New Jersey will not make the playoffs, they sit 18 points behind Philadelphia. They're not making the playoffs. So it doesn't matter. NJD versus everybody. Okay. But if these guys went on a 12-game winning streak, I would think, because 12 would take them to 23-19-5. It's 4 games above 500. I don't know that would take them back into the race. I think that would get them down to about 7 or 8 points out. And that's only if other teams ahead of them got cold too. It's not happening. Chicago, on the other hand, they're 15-16-6. They're 5-4-1 in their last 10. At home, they're 8-8-3. They're 7 points behind Calgary. So they're flirting with it. They're flirting with the idea of being back in the race. I don't think they're officially back into it. But if Kane and Taves continue to play like they did in their last game against Colorado, they're going to surprise some people. And they could surprise the Devils a little bit tomorrow, although the Devils really shouldn't be surprised with a loss when it happens. Their scoring leaders, Paul Murray, 14 goals and 8 assists. Hischier, 6 goals and 12 assists for them. Plus-minus leaders, actually McLeod with a +1. Rooney and Paul Murray both have even plus-minuses. And that's it. Everybody else is a negative. Penalty minutes leaders, PK Subban with 40. Power play goals, Paul Murray has 7. Shorthanded goals, Hischier has the only shorthanded goal for the team this year. Game-winning goals, Paul Murray leads there with 3. He really is their one big goal-scoring threat right now. Kane, 20 goals, 26 assists for 46 points. Kane has more points than Hischier and Paul Murray put together. Taves, 8 goals, 19 assists for 27 points. Plus-minus leader, DeHaan, +10, so they miss him out of the lineup for sure. And then there's Strome that has a +5, so Dylan Strome with a +5 rating, not too bad. Penalty minutes leader, there's a tie here, Gilbert and Shaw. Interestingly enough, neither of them have played every game, obviously, and yet 33 penalty minutes. When they're in the lineup, they get penalized. Gilbert with a couple of fights in there, too. Power play goals, DeBrincat and Kane both have 5. DeBrincat needs to score more 5-on-5. I'm not telling Chicago fans anything they don't know. Saad leads them in shorthanded goals with 2, and also leads them in game-winning goals with 3. Saad is quietly having a pretty good season as well. So, moving along from that one to the next one, which is Edmonton in against Vancouver. Oh boy. 7 o'clock Pacific. I say oh boy, because Edmonton's kind of overdue for a really big game. And McDavid and Draisaitl are overdue for like a 3 or 4 point game each. And Vancouver, yeah, we'll see. They tend to be up 1, down 1, up 1, down 1. They've won their last 2, so makes me a little nervous about this one. Now, Edmonton's 20-15-4. And they need to hold off the Canucks because the Canucks aren't that far behind them. That was Shadow jumping off the stool. I don't know where he's headed. He's going up that way. So 20-15-4 for the Oilers. It caused me to jump a little bit, so letting people know why I was startled. 3-6-1 in their last 10 for the Oilers on the road. They're 11-8-1. They're now 2 points behind Vegas. They're 1 point ahead of Calgary. So they need to stem the tide here. They need to stop the bleeding. They started that with the win over Montreal. They're going to try to do it again by going into Vancouver and beating them in Vancouver. Scoring leaders, McDavid, 21 goals, 40 assists for 61 points. Draisaitl, 22 goals, 38 assists for 60 points. They have both slowed down, and yet they're both on pace for about 120 points this year. That's not bad. Those are pretty good seasons. Plus-minus leaders, Cassian and Benning are both +8. Penalty minutes leaders, Cassian with 48. Power play goals, Neal has 10. Shorthanded goals, Sheahan has scored the only shorthanded goal. He did that a couple games ago. Game-winning goal leader is Draisaitl with 6. So Draisaitl, pretty big in key moments for them. Now on the Vancouver side, Pettersson, 17 goals, 22 assists, 39 points. Besser, 13 goals, 22 assists for 35 points. He's having a much better season than I think a lot of people realize. Plus-minus leaders, are Fantenberg with a +4, and then there's 3 guys tied with a +3. I am fighting a cold right now, courtesy of my lovely wife at Christmas time, because it's a gift nobody else would have thought to give me. Anyways, penalty minutes leaders, Edler with 34. Even though he hasn't played in a while, he's still their penalty minutes leader. Power play goals, Miller with 7. JT Miller's having an amazing season and has turned their power play into something good, which is why they brought him in. Shorthanded goals, Pearson leads with 2. Pearson's having a pretty good year as well. Game-winning goals, Pettersson has 4. So this is a pretty solid Canucks team that just finds ways to lose in some games. And they've had a kind of a rough December, although it hasn't been as bad as November. And if they can win this game against the Oilers tomorrow night, they could be on the verge of a pretty decent December as they keep that race tight in the Pacific Division. That being said, I need to change boards one last time. Next up, the Colorado Avalanche are in against Vegas. So Vegas coming off of that emotional win over San Jose that thankfully didn't get out of control tonight. And I'm serious. I'm really glad that didn't get out of control. We didn't see a big brawl or anything. Won't be seeing any suspensions out of that game. I'm glad it turned out to be relatively benign. Colorado coming in. Colorado is going to look to get a little physical with Vegas, knowing that they're coming out of a game last night, second game in 2 nights. Kind of jump on them early, so watch for that. Colorado is 22-11-3. Over their last 10, they're 6-3-1, and it kind of feels like they're fading a little bit. Makar being out is a big reason why. So when Cale Makar comes back and these guys turn into Supermen again, it lends more credence to the idea that Makar should be the maybe Norris, but definitely Calder winner for this year. They're 12-6-1 on the road. They're 5 points behind St. Louis, and they're 3 points ahead of Winnipeg. So we'll see tomorrow night how they do against a Vegas team that is currently 20-13-6, and they have definitely got it together. They're 6-2-2 in their last 10. They're 10-6-3 at home. They're tied with Arizona now for first in the division. They win tomorrow night. They could come out of tomorrow night as the first place team in the Pacific, which will make all hockey fans everywhere really, really happy. They're 2 points ahead of Edmonton. They're 3 points ahead of Calgary, and the Pacific Division again is pretty tightly packed together. Now, leaders for each team. McKinnon, of course, is your leading scorer for Colorado. 21 goals, 32 assists for 53 points. Donskoy, 13 goals, 15 assists for 28 points. Plus-minus leaders, Graves with a +24. Cole with a +18. So Colorado's got some gaudy numbers for plus-minus. Penalty minutes leader is Kadri with 46. No surprise there. Power play goals, McKinnon has 7. Shorthanded goals, Calvert has 2. And there are 4 guys who have 3 game-winning goals. I wasn't going to try to get them all into that small area on the board, so I just put 4 tied with 3. On the Vegas side of things, Pacioretty, 15 goals, 21 assists, leads the Vegas Golden Knights in scoring. Stone has 13 goals, 21 assists for 34 points. Plus-minus leaders, Karlsson, +8. Love William Karlsson. Wild Bill is a great forward. He really is my favorite Vegas Golden Knight. Smith and Theodore are tied with a +7. Penalty minutes leaders, McNabb with 36. Power play goals, Stone has 5. Shorthanded goals, Smith and Karlsson both have 2. And game-winning goals, Stastny has 3 so far. So yeah, this should be a very high-tempo, hard-hitting game between two teams that are playing. Well, like I said, Colorado feels like it's kind of fading without Makar, but they still have a pretty strong record, whether you look at the last 10 or look at overall. So we'll see how they do against Vegas tomorrow night. And that'll probably decide what happens to them in terms of the power rankings board and all that other stuff. All right, moving along. Last game of the night, and then I can go lay down and get some rest, at least for tonight. St. Louis in against LA, because tomorrow night I'm going to have to review all 13 games, so that's going to be a long video. I'll just get some Sudafed. What do you mean they don't sell Sudafed anymore? St. Louis is in against LA. St. Louis is 23-8-6 overall. In their last 10, they're 7-3. And any Blues fan will tell you they've won 5 in a row. They're going for 6 tomorrow night against an LA team that's pretty good at home. But on the road, St. Louis is 11-4-3. They're 5 points ahead of Colorado. They're 8 points ahead of Winnipeg. If Colorado goes in and loses against Vegas and St. Louis wins, in against the LA Kings, they're 7 points ahead. And that's running away and hiding kind of numbers. Now on the LA front, they're 15, 19, and 4. Over their last 10, they're 4, 4, and 2. At home, they're 10, 6, and 1, but they're 9 points behind Calgary. They are far enough back that if you're on the Kings, you know that you're probably not going to make it. And if you're Kings management, you're already thinking, all right, so who can we move out in order to get things set for next year? I would think that's a conversation they're already having, and after the holiday freeze, they might make a move or two. Perron is the leading scorer for St. Louis with 15 goals, 20 assists for 35 points. O'Reilly, 7 goals, 26 assists for 33 points. Your plus-minus leaders, Vince Dunn, +9. Thomas, +7. So what's interesting with Robert Thomas isn't just his offense is showing up. His plus-minus is pretty good, too. He's good defensively. Penalty minutes, Perron has 26. Power play goals, Shen has 6. Shorthanded goals, there's 4 guys tied with 1. I wasn't writing 4 on the board. Game-winning goals, Perron leads with 5. I wrote the number 4. I'm not writing 4 names before somebody says, you did write the number 4. Ha, ha, ha. Now, on the LA side of things, because I know how the comment section works. On the LA side of things, Kopitar, 14 goals, 18 assists. He leads them in scoring. Kopitar's been great at times this year. But again, they really don't have a whole lot behind him. Not scoring-wise. Doughty, 6 goals, 18 assists, is their second leading scorer. Roy has a +5 to lead the team there. Walker and Prohorkin both have +4s, and Prohorkin's been pretty solid. Penalty minutes leader is Clifford with 38. Power play goals, Kopitar and Doughty both have 4. Shorthanded goals, there's 3 players who are tied with 1. And then your game-winning goals leader for the LA Kings is Carter with 5. And that 5 seems kind of high because they've only won 15 games. So if they get a game-winning goal, it'll probably be from Carter. And so that's what you do if you're St. Louis. If it's a tie game, watch Jeff Carter. But this one, I would probably favor St. Louis in this one. But LA is decent enough at home. It's their road record that just kills their chances for playoffs right now. And we'll see whether or not that continues to be the case in 2020. That being said, you guys are all set for tomorrow's games. Let me know your winners, all that other wonderful stuff in the comment section below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. And this is the last of the games before the Christmas break. And during the Christmas break, got all kinds of video ideas and everything, including an award show that I'll probably put on the 24th, I would think. So I'm going to have some fun with that. Just sort of some awards at Christmas. Gifts at Christmas kind of thing. So stay tuned for that. Thank you guys so much, though, for everything. I will talk to you again soon.